My wife betrayed me, became pregnant, sought a divorce along with alimony. In response, I revealed her actions to her church, tarnishing her reputation and leading to her expulsion. Let us commence the video. As several of you have expressed interest in the full narrative, it seems only fitting to commence from the very beginning. This may take a while, but that's all right. In the initial 4 years of our marriage, my wife, whom I shall refer to as Rachel, and I believe we were thriving. Our paths first crossed during our college years. She radiated beauty and appeared genuinely invested in my aspirations, rather than merely looking for someone to join her in revelry. I pursued my business degree as she delved into the realm of education. From the very start, there was an undeniable connection between us. Upon completing my studies, I ventured into the realm of consulting, establishing my own business. The initial years were nothing short of a nightmare, toiling away for over 90 hours each week, consumed by the anxiety of making rent, the entirety of it all weighing heavily on my mind. Yet during that time, Rachel was remarkably supportive. At the witching hour of 2 a.m., she would bring me energy drinks, provide me with uplifting words when clients overlook my efforts during coding sessions, the accolades of Girlfriend of the Year and all that entails. She even suggested pausing her teaching career to assist me in creating something extraordinary. It resonated within me as the most altruistic gesture I had ever observed. In retrospect, the unmistakable red flag was right there, boldly unfurling before me. We settled into a wonderful home in a pleasant neighborhood after my business began to flourish financially. Rachel developed an intense bond with a nearby church. She took the initiative to lead women's clubs, orchestrating charity events, consistently sharing Bible verses on Instagram, and advocating for the importance of family values and the sanctity of marriage. Yet as the fourth year unfolded, a sense of change began to permeate the atmosphere. Disengaged. Initially, there were minor concerns. She ceased to ask about my day. What once were fluid exchanges now felt contrived, as though she were merely ticking off items on a list instead of truly engaging in the moment. I would pose simple inquiries such as, "How did Bible study go? Who made an appearance?" She offered terse, ambiguous replies, seemingly keen to redirect the conversation. Her sudden interest in our finances truly took me by surprise. In the past, she found satisfaction in her access to the credit cards and never questioned the nature of the business. She was suddenly eager to uncover precise figures. What was our revenue for the last quarter? What is the current valuation of the business? Are there assets that remain unknown to me? Initially, I thought she was merely expressing curiosity, possibly seeking to engage more deeply. I noticed her capturing images of the financial statements I had inadvertently left behind. One night I awoke to find her sifting through the files in my office, oblivious to my slumber. "Just organizing," she remarked. Yet I caught her perusing documents on her phone. The situation was steadily intensifying, and I sensed the growing tension between us with each passing day. Then her routine transformed. Her routine took on an odd quality, with late nights that seemed to stretch into the early hours, and weekend getaways that felt disjointed and unconnected. She would depart the house clad in one outfit, only to return in another, brushing it off with a nonchalant, "Oh, I spilled something." One evening I observed that our time together had dwindled and that she appeared to have changed. With a dramatic roll of her eyes, she expressed her exasperation. "You're imagining things," she declared with conviction, her gaze fixed elsewhere. In that moment, she transformed into a fierce guardian of her phone. She acquired a collection of alluring garments, yet I never witnessed her donning them. She returned with assertions that seemed incongruous, citing eateries in cities she had never visited, or presenting receipts for a single hotel room despite her claims of traveling with 4 companions. I found it hard to accept, attributing my concerns to the overwhelming demands of my workload. That night she returned home after the hour had grown late. Her hair had a touch of disarray, her makeup appeared more smudged than usual, and there lingered a subtle, peculiar scent about her, something sharp, reminiscent of perfume. I found myself without any cologne. I inquired with a nonchalant air at the outset, "A night that stretched on endlessly?" She barely acknowledged my presence as she slipped off her heels. Indeed, the Bible study extended beyond the expected time. After that, we enjoyed a meal together. You're familiar with the experience. However, I did not. The Bible study sessions once concluded by 8 p.m., yet now she strolled in after midnight as if it were the most ordinary occurrence. It seems as though someone has doused you in cologne, I remarked, observing her response closely. In that moment, her posture transformed, radiating a sense of protectiveness rather than guilt. With a dismissive scoff, she folded her arms across her chest. Are you truly focused now? If you spent less time at the office, perhaps you would be more aware of the happenings in my life. What I received was not a response. It was merely an evasion, and it unfolded precisely as she had planned, casting the blame squarely upon me. I had the opportunity to push, yet I chose not to. I was well aware of how this would unfold. Should I level an accusation against her, she would undoubtedly weep, twist the narrative, and cast me as the paranoid and inattentive one. I refused to allow her to twist the story, so I took a clever approach. I started keeping a close eye on my credit card statements. After she left her iPad unlocked, I took a moment to examine her location history. Here's a little insight. Women tend to leave their accounts signed in. Indeed, without fail, each Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, she dedicated precisely 2 to 3 hours to a distinct location within the town, a residential building. On Thursday, I made the choice to depart from work ahead of schedule. I took a position across from the complex and settled in to wait. At precisely 2 p.m., Rachel recoiled suddenly. After a brief interval of 10 minutes, he found a spot to park beside her. A towering figure, Jim Bro style. He bore one of those tribal tattoos on his arm, a true cliché. I captured images of them entering together, all affectionate and close. As I sat in my car, a storm of emotions brewing within me, I watched my wife, the very center of my universe, enter another man's apartment, her demeanor radiating the same playful allure that once captivated me. My thoughts clamored for action, urging me to charge up there and rip the door from its hinges. Yet I compelled myself to remain in place. Rage resonates with a thunderous intensity. Yet what of retribution? Revenge whispers softly. Upon her return 2 hours later, I captured more photographs. I observed their kiss, a moment that seemed to stretch infinitely, and in that instant, a part of me went dark. All uncertainties have vanished. The woman I loved was gone from my life. His name was Brian. It was during one of those quiet moments, when she stepped away to shower, that I stumbled upon the revelations hidden within her text conversations. He served at her church, perhaps in the role of a youth pastor. The irony was palpable. Yet I chose not to confront her right away. Instead, I gathered additional evidence, including screenshots of messages, further photographs of their encounters, and hotel receipts discovered in her purse. I captured a phone call where she confided in Brian that she was on the verge of leaving me, and that they would at last be united. The deepest wound, however, lay not solely in the deceit. It was uncovering the extent of her schemes against my downfall. As I perused her text alongside Brian, a wave of unease washed over me, leaving me feeling utterly queasy. This was not a mere coincidence. For months she had meticulously crafted her plans. I find myself in a state of anticipation, poised for the perfect moment to unfold. He is so engrossed in his work that he fails to notice anything around him. Once I submit the paperwork, I will advocate for spousal support. He will be caught completely off guard. She had no intention of just walking away from me. She was leveraging my support to build her new existence. She and her boyfriend shared a laugh about how she would gracefully take off, leaving me stranded and alone. In that moment, it dawned on me that she was not merely turning her back. I ensured she departed empty-handed. After hours, I had a laid-back meeting with my business accountant. I mentioned that I am contemplating a few structural changes. In the weeks that followed, I took deliberate financial steps, such as prepaying my office lease for a year, accelerating the repayment of business debts, and adjusting my salary to ensure that a greater portion of funds remained within the firm rather than appearing as personal income. I made an investment in new equipment, aware that it would soon become essential, even if it wasn't an immediate necessity. On paper, it seemed as though my business was managing cash flow effectively. Nothing out of the ordinary, merely standard procedures that, oddly enough, rendered me significantly less liquid. Simultaneously, I established a second personal account with a different bank and started transferring small sums. Nothing too wild, merely sufficient to create a barrier that would remain out of her reach. All matters were conducted within the bounds of the law and meticulously recorded. I was not concealing any funds. I was merely ensuring that she received no more than what was rightfully hers. And then, quite unexpectedly, she extended a favor to me. On an ordinary Tuesday, she resolved to dismantle everything on her own terms. Upon my return from work, I found her perched on our couch, wearing an oddly satisfied expression that piqued my curiosity. "Alex," she said in a feigned gentle tone, "it is essential that we have a conversation. I was acutely aware of the impending events, yet I feigned ignorance. Hello there. I am expecting a child." We hadn't been seeing each other for months, so unless she was miraculously expecting a second coming, this certainly wasn't my responsibility. Before I had the chance to reply, she plunged the blade deeper. "However, it does not belong to you. I have been involved with another person. I seek a divorce." She articulated it with the nonchalance of someone placing a takeout order. Guilt does not exist. Without a moment's pause, 5 years of marriage, discarded as if it were a worthless coupon past its prime. The fury surged within me, a palpable force beneath my skin, as my hands clenched instinctively at my sides. Every instinct urged me to hurl the entire folder of evidence at her, to drag her through the mud in that very moment. Yet in that moment, a realization dawned upon me. It was flawless. She was completely unaware. I had no prior knowledge of that. I had been quietly observing, meticulously documenting, and patiently waiting. She was convinced she held the reins of her destiny. She was convinced that she was the one who brought it all to a close. A lazy smirk crept across my face. In her eyes, I caught a glimmer of confusion. She anticipated my eruption, my pleas and my inquiries about who it was. Yet I remained there, silent as ever. She reaffirmed her stance with unwavering determination. "Rest assured, alimony will still be part of our arrangement. I sacrificed my career for you, which means you have a debt to repay." Our gazes met in a silent exchange. I left a comment for Rachel. "Did you honestly believe I was unaware of Brian?" Her complexion drained of its hue. A soft laugh escaped me. "So it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, is that correct? A span of 2 to 3 hours. The same apartment complex, identical parking space. You didn't even make an effort to diversify it. You genuinely believed I was that foolish?" She tensed, her jaw clenched. "I must admit, I'm at a loss regarding what you're referring to." "Oh, really now?" I reclined and extended my arms over the back of the couch, embodying a sense of timelessness. "So the Bible study is running a bit late, is it? Surely this lesson plan must be quite extraordinary if it necessitates lingerie in a hotel room," I mused. "Ah, Brian, quite the choice you've made there. So, you're a youth pastor, are you?" One can't help but ponder the reactions of his congregation to the revelation of him fathering a child with a married woman, all while extolling the virtues of family values from the pulpit. She found herself engulfed in a wave of panic. She straightened her posture, her eyes flitting about as though in search of an escape. "How long were you planning to play with me, Rachel?" I asked, tilting my head in curiosity. "You and your young companion were biding your time for the perfect opportunity, weren't you? Are you intending to extract every last drop from me before you escape together? What was it you mentioned? He won't anticipate it, will he?" Her mouth moved in a rhythmic dance, gasping for breath like a fish out of water. I refused to allow her the chance to heal. I rose to my feet. "Allow me to clarify something important. You will not emerge from this as the victor. You will not take anything from me that I do not willingly offer." She endeavored to regain her composure, masking her fear with a veneer of confidence. "The law is unyielding, Alex. You may resist it as much as you wish, but in the end, defeat is inevitable." I bestowed upon her the most self-satisfied smile I had ever offered to another soul. "Text," I replied with a straightforward acknowledgement. "If you say so." She believed she was delivering the final blow, wielding her influence with undeniable force. Yet truthfully, she spared me the effort. All I needed was a smile, a simple gesture to convince her that she held the reins of the situation. In the meantime, I had progressed 5 steps forward. The following fortnight unfolded in a most peculiar manner. Rachel departed almost at once, heading directly to Brian's residence. She initiated the divorce proceedings, citing irreconcilable differences. Elaborate terminology to express a desire for intimate encounters with other men without the burden of guilt. I had an encounter with a collective of legal professionals. The initial trio made it abundantly clear that I was in deep trouble. No-fault divorce estate was their favorite phrase. It seems that the revelation of my wife's affair with the youth pastor, resulting in her pregnancy, held no significance in the courtroom. Yet my search persisted until I encountered an attorney, whom I'll refer to as Victor, who offered a candid perspective on the matter. "Listen, I won't sugarcoat it for you," he said. "It seems inevitable that some form of compensation will be necessary, yet we can certainly endeavor to mitigate the impact." Subsequently, I presented my financial statements to Victor. He arched an eyebrow. He remarked, glancing at me, about the intriguing timing of certain business expenses and the restructuring. He remained silent, unable to provide legal counsel on concealing assets. Yet I could feel the awareness of my actions lingering in the air between us. While this may offer some relief in the alimony calculation, it's important to note that in this state, substantial payments are still anticipated. It was at that moment that the wheels began to turn. The courts might turn a blind eye to her infidelity, yet her self-righteous church companions certainly will not. I decided to maintain my composure throughout the divorce proceedings. Allow her to think she was triumphant. Provide her with just enough leeway to seal her own fate. The day in court unfolded in an unusual manner. I made my entrance clad in my finest suit. Rachel made her entrance alongside her expensive attorney, clad in understated attire, reminiscent of someone preparing for a role in a reality show about sister wives. It was nearly amusing how insincere the performance appeared. Before we even began, the judge seemed to exude an air of profound disinterest. Rachel's lawyer took the floor, unleashing a torrent of nonsense about her sacrifices. How she relinquished her promising career to stand by my side, how she maintained our household while I built my business, and how she was entitled to recompense for her role in our union. At last, the moment had arrived for us. My attorney presented the proof: her infidelity, the pregnancy, and the reality that she was already cohabitating with Brian. Her lawyer rose to their feet. "Your Honor, it is important to remember that we are operating within a no-fault jurisdiction." He delivered those 3 words with such smugness as though they could nullify all that she had achieved. Though my client harbors a profound sense of regret regarding the dissolution of her marriage, the legal framework is unequivocal. Marital misconduct does not influence the determination of spousal support. The financial disparity between these two parties is what truly matters. Their casual dismissal of her efforts ignited a fierce desire within me to dismantle the very courtroom that bore witness to such injustice. She betrayed trust. She deceived. She found herself expecting a child that was not his. Yet I was still expected to compensate her for her departure. My lawyer reiterated the details, emphasizing that she was not merely exiting a marriage, but also creating a financial safety net while cohabiting with another individual. Yet the judge merely exhaled, biding his time as we concluded. As the moment for the verdict approached, he took a deep breath and brought the gavel down with authority. The court recognizes Mr. Simmons's apprehensions about his wife's unfaithfulness. However, the legal framework in this state is unequivocal. Misconduct by a spouse does not play a role in the assessment of alimony. Rachel cast a disdainful glance my way from the other side of the room. The judge moved forward. Considering Mrs. Simmons's financial reliance throughout the marriage and her present lack of employment, the court determines that she is deserving of spousal support. Mr. Simmons is set to disburse $5,500 each month for a duration of 4 years, or until such time as Mrs. Simmons enters into a new marriage. $5,500 each month for 4 years, destined for the woman who betrayed me while nurturing another man's child within her. I experienced a sensation akin to consuming untamed elixirs. Yet I found solace in the fact that my financial choices had yielded positive results. Somewhat. Instead of facing a monthly payment of $7,000, the judge opted to lower it to $5,500. Suboptimal, yet preferable to having nothing at all. What is the most enjoyable aspect? Rachel and her attorney were completely unaware of the funds I had discreetly set aside, or that my enterprise would somehow find its footing again once this tumultuous chapter came to a close. Rachel exuded a sense of smug satisfaction as we exited the courtroom. "I told you," she murmured as we walked by. "It would have been wiser to accept my terms from the outset." Then she had the nerve to call Brian right in front of me. "Darling, it's accomplished. We triumphed." She chuckled with the exuberance of youth. "He must fulfill his obligation." I mentioned that the judge would be indifferent to the other matters. I remained silent. She strolled away, confidence radiating from her every step, convinced she had executed the perfect ruse. Yet the game was merely beginning. The initial alimony payment was made punctually. I refrained from voicing any grievances, made no commotion, even dispatched a polite email. "Payment has been dispatched. Could you kindly confirm its receipt?" Rachel seemed taken aback. She surely anticipated that I would harbor resentment, engage in conflict, and provide her with further fuel for her arguments. Instead, I assumed the role of the perfect ex-husband, courteous, punctual with my financial obligations, distant yet not confrontational. Unbeknownst to her, an unforeseen turn of events loomed on the horizon. Rachel transcended the role of a mere member of Harvest Community Church. She embodied their ideals perfectly. She guided the women's ministry. She orchestrated retreats for couples embarking on the journey of marriage. She remained on stage during the services, articulating the divine design for sacred union. Her father held the esteemed position of a deacon. Her mother led the Sunday school. The whole family embodied a remarkable Christian ideal, and I was certain they would betray her the instant they uncovered her true identity. I had gathered it all. Results of DNA testing, images marked by time, capturing moments of her and Brian. Share images of their unfiltered messages. Receipts from the hotel. She went so far as to capture herself hurling insults at her religious friends for their perceived uptightness and prudishness. That particular one was particularly succulent. I organized all the materials in a tidy professional folder and included a cover letter that was exceptionally polite and formal. "Dear elders of Harvest Community Church, it is with a heavy heart that I bring this matter to your attention, for as a fellow believer, I feel it is my duty to do so. My former spouse, Rachel Neifer Simmons, who manages various ministries within your church, has been partaking in actions that contradict the core values of your congregation. I have provided evidence of her unfaithfulness, which commenced during our marriage and led to a pregnancy that is not mine, as confirmed by DNA testing. Rachel Neifer currently resides with this man and is receiving a substantial amount of alimony from me. I share this not from a place of malice, but from a genuine concern for the integrity of your ministry. Respectfully, Michael Simmons." I delivered the box early Sunday morning, at a time when no one was around. Upon my return home, I settled in, anticipating the impending storm's arrival. The Sunday following the dispatch of my modest care package, my phone erupted with notifications, messages exchanged with familiar friends from church. "What on earth have you done? An emergency elder meeting has been summoned by the pastor just prior to the service. Rachel is unraveling." I merely switched off my phone and drifted back into slumber. It was an absolutely exhilarating experience, I must admit. As the afternoon wore on, a voicemail from Rachel found its way to me. Her voice pierced the air with such intensity that I found myself instinctively pulling the phone away from my ear. "How could you possibly betray me like this? I was dismissed from the women's ministry. My father won't even cast a glance in my direction. You have shattered everything. I removed it without making a call back. I have no room for negativity in my life." As the week unfolded, a cascade of messages poured in, each one steeped in a growing sense of urgency. Her companions from the church turned a blind eye to her. Her parents were pausing to pray about the situation, a phrase that, in church vernacular, translates to their disappointment in her. The Christian school where she had offered her time implored her not to come back. Even Brian found himself wavering in uncertainty. It seems he was unprepared for the chaos that unfolded. He believed he was welcoming a charming woman and a reliable alimony check. Instead, he found himself a pariah, burdened with impending fatherhood and a heavy load of emotional baggage. By Friday, he had evicted her from his apartment. Ah, the illusions of pure love. How fleeting they seem, don't you think? Rachel found herself called to a formal disciplinary hearing with the church elders, just 1 week after I presented my evidence. Her voice trembled through the line, heavy with tears as she called me, sobbing. "Alex, please, they're about to humiliate me in front of everyone," she cried out. "Are you aware of what that signifies? The announcement will echo through the entire congregation, and soon all will be aware." "They're already aware of Rachel," I responded with a straightforward tone. "That's essentially the nature of church gossip. My father could face the loss of his role due to this situation. Our family has been involved in harvest for 3 generations. You ought to have considered that prior to your entanglement with the youth pastor." She paused, enveloped in a moment of quiet contemplation. Then, in a gentle whisper, he ceased to address me. "Whom do you refer to? Is that your father?" "Negative. Brian, he remarked that this situation is laden with drama, claiming I misrepresented the divorce as straightforward and uncomplicated." A laugh escaped me uncontrollably. "So your soulmate abandoned ship the moment challenges arose? Astounding. I find myself without a place to turn, Alex. My parents have made it clear that I cannot stay with them. My friends seem to be ignoring my calls. It appears to be a matter of individual concern. May I? May I return home? Only until I can make sense of it all. This woman possesses an extraordinary level of bravery. This place no longer belongs to you, Rachel. That choice was relinquished the moment you opted for deceit." She erupted into tears once more, her sobs grand and dramatic. "What should I do now? Book a hotel room. Alimony funds are on their way to you. It's time to make sense of it all." After that, I ended the call. Chilly? Perhaps. However, after her actions, I found my reservoir of sympathy utterly depleted. The church hearing unfolded on Wednesday evening. By Thursday morning, whispers of the news had woven their way through the neighborhood. Rachel found herself publicly labeled as an adulteress, leading to her removal from all church duties. The preacher delivered a fervent sermon on the sanctity of marriage and the repercussions of sin, all the while avoiding any direct mention of Rachel, yet making his intentions unmistakably clear. Her parents stepped back from their roles in church leadership. Her sister delayed her wedding, originally set to occur during the harvest season. The whole family found themselves in a state of exile. And Brian, he had already sought a transfer to a distant church site, abandoning Rachel, who was left pregnant and alone. I stayed on the periphery the entire time. I found myself in a position where no effort was required on my part. The community she held in the highest regard had undertaken all the heavy lifting on my behalf. Small religious communities are intricately connected to all aspects of life. The collapse of Rachel's church triggered a series of events that unfolded in a way I could never have anticipated. Initially, the private Christian school, where she held a part-time role, faced financial limitations and ultimately eliminated her position. The principal averted his gaze as he delivered the news to her. Then, her volunteer opportunities started to dwindle. The Crisis Pregnancy Center, where she offered guidance to young women, concluded that her present situation rendered her an unsuitable role model. The organization where she orchestrated donation drives notified her of their plans to restructure the volunteer program. Each facet of her identity was slowly eroded, piece by piece. I dutifully sent the alimony check each month, adhering to the established schedule. 3 weeks following the emergence of the church controversy, a message arrived from our former neighbor. Rachel resides in her car, tucked away in the Walmart parking lot. I chose not to reply. Yet as the night deepened, I found myself driving by. Indeed, the Hero Honda sat quietly in the distant corner of the lot. Her silhouette was visible in the driver's seat, illuminated by the glow of her phone screen. The next day, she reached out to me once more. She explained that she had lost her job. Her voice carried a flatness, devoid of tears this time, merely echoing a hollow sense of defeat. "That is quite unfortunate. The arrival of the baby is anticipated in 5 months. I find myself in a position where opportunities seem elusive. My parents remained silent towards me. I remained silent. She eventually acknowledged that she had been sleeping in her car. Managing both a car payment and an apartment solely on alimony is simply beyond my means. It appears to be a case of inadequate financial foresight. She inhaled with a sudden intensity. Is this what you were hoping for? To witness my utter devastation? I paused to reflect on it for a moment. Do you realize something? Indeed. Indeed, that's quite accurate. I acted foolishly. An error was committed. It was never my intention to cause you pain. I cut her off. I am indifferent. She stifled a sob. I wish to express my sincerest apologies. A sly smile crept across my face. Wishing you all the best as you embark on this new chapter of your life. In that moment, I resolved to unveil my final gambit. It's time to conclude this on my own terms. Honestly, I included it, maintaining a laid-back vibe. I believe I have a solution that could benefit us both. What type of resolution? Rachel asked, her interest piqued. Her voice carried a palpable sense of anguish. I find myself growing weary of penning these monthly checks, I remarked nonchalantly. My enterprise is experiencing growth. I am considering the prospect of establishing an office in Singapore. I may relocate there for a time. How is that relevant to my situation? Indeed, the enforcement of international alimony is intricate. I paused, allowing the weight of it to settle within me. I've been in discussions with a new lawyer who believes we may have valid reasons to reconsider the settlement, drawing on some inventive interpretations of the law. Undoubtedly, that was utter nonsense. Yet Rachel remained unaware, and she found herself in no position to challenge my words. What do you mean by that? She asked. Her voice resonated with a sense of urgency. I propose that I acquire your share, a single comprehensive payment in lieu of monthly alimony for the upcoming 4 years. She held her tongue, contemplating the circumstances that lay before her. What is the cost? She finally asked. $90,000. Currency, exempt from taxation. You execute a document that absolves me of any future responsibilities. The funds are yours to claim today. Rachel was completely unaware that I could easily manage that lump sum payment. The steps I took previously had preserved a significant amount of my finances, and my business was on the path to recovery. Neither she nor her lawyer ever uncovered even a fraction of what I possessed. To her, $90,000 seemed like a lifeline. Yet in truth, it amounted to less than half of what I would provide her throughout the entire alimony duration. A significant decrease. Yet for an individual residing in their vehicle, expecting a child and facing financial hardship, that likely felt akin to striking gold. I don't know, she said, my attorney remarked. I informed him that his lawyer isn't spending the night in a Walmart parking lot. This offer is set to expire in just 24 hours. Following that, I will initiate the process to contest the alimony ruling, leaving you with nothing as we engage in a prolonged legal struggle over the next year or two. Increased stillness. I could nearly perceive the gears turning in her thoughts. May I take some time to ponder this? Certainly you have until this time tomorrow. Thus I shall proceed with the challenge ahead. I ended the call abruptly, not pausing for a response. 2 hours later, she called once more. I'll take it, she replied softly. Wise decision. The paperwork will be prepared by morning. Please join me at my lawyer's office at 9 a.m. Michael, her voice was barely a whisper. Thank you. I almost burst into laughter. There's no need for gratitude, Rachel. This is not mercy, it's a matter of commerce. The next morning, she walked into the lawyer's office. A vision of utter disarray. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, her hair fell in disarray, and she wore the same clothes I had glimpsed through the car window. The attorney had prepared the necessary documentation, a comprehensive release of all future alimony obligations in return for a single payment. The cashier's check was already prepared by me. Rachel scarcely glanced at the contracts prior to affixing her signature. As my lawyer slid the check across the table, her hands quivered slightly as she reached for it. What now? That's all, she asked. Is this it? I inclined my head in agreement. Utterly finished. I wish to sever all ties and never hear from you again. She seemed on the verge of expressing something deeper, yet she merely nodded and exited the room. With the door closing softly behind her, My lawyer let out a resigned shake of his head. It's interesting to note that many individuals in your situation might not have extended any offer to her at all. I conveyed to him that the price of freedom from her was a staggering 90 grand. I had every intention of it. The monthly payments did not wreak havoc on my finances, yet they served as a persistent reminder of the deception I had endured. I found myself completely untethered. I am liberated to forge ahead, unencumbered by her lingering presence. Moreover, I was familiar with Rachel. She would exhaust that sum in no more than 6 months. In that case, she would be left with nothing. No spousal support. There are no job prospects. There exists no contingency strategy. In the meantime, I shall be crafting my empire, embracing the fullness of life, and resolutely moving forward without a glance back. About 6 months later, I encountered her at a gas station. It unfolded unexpectedly, a mere twist of fate in the tapestry of life. She seemed unyielding. Still expecting, or perhaps expecting once more, I chose not to inquire about her situation. She was behind the wheel of a worn-out Civic, a far cry from the beautiful car she once had during our marriage. Upon catching sight of me at the pump with my new BMW, she became motionless, reminiscent of a deer caught in the glare of oncoming headlights. I offered her a nod, a gesture of courtesy. She approached with a sense of uncertainty. An uncomfortable silence lingered before she broke it, asking, "How are you?" I merely shrugged. Business thrives and life flourishes. She inclined her head slightly, her gaze drifting to the ground beneath her feet. That is, that is quite favorable. A deeper, unsettling silence enveloped the space. The money has vanished, she finally declared. I settled my debts, and the remainder was allocated to rent and sustenance. I merely fixed my gaze upon her. That doesn't concern me. I understand. I'm uncertain as to why I'm sharing this with you. I have completed the task of refueling my vehicle, wishing you the best in all your endeavors. As I started to return to my car, her voice broke through once more. I apologize, Alex, for all that has transpired. I truly am. I lingered in my gaze upon her for what felt like an eternity. Was it fulfilling to observe her in this manner? To be frank, not quite to the extent I had anticipated. I found it difficult to muster any sympathy for her, however. Insufficient and tardy, Rachel. With a sense of finality, I slipped into my car and drove off into the distance. I have not laid eyes on her since that moment. Everything in my life has been unfolding beautifully. I encountered a remarkable woman. She is truly extraordinary. She runs her own marketing agency, dedicates herself fully, enjoys life to the fullest, and is straightforward without any nonsense. 3 months have passed since we took the step of moving in together. There is no pressing need to enter into marriage once more. Having experienced the sting of a past misstep, one becomes more cautious in future endeavors. However, the truth is, someday, I could envision it unfolding with her. She embodies authenticity. I made an effort to stay out of Rachel's business, yet in a close-knit community such as this, information travels fast. Moreover, there are still a few mutual acquaintances who occasionally pass along information to me. What amount did I provide to her? $90,000, vanished in a mere 4 months. It seems she utilized some funds to settle credit card debt I was unaware of, acquired an inexpensive apartment, and squandered the remainder in a futile attempt to uphold her previous lifestyle instead of adjusting to her altered situation. Rachel embodies a timeless elegance in her style. Effective budgeting has always eluded me. She welcomed a new life into the world, a son. Brian has a legal duty to provide child support, yet it seems he is often viewed as someone who neglects this responsibility, frequently falling into arrears. As mentioned earlier, he moved to Ohio and has minimal to no communication with the child. It seems that his commitment to youth ministry did not reach his own offspring. Astounding. Rachel endeavored to pursue her teaching career once more, yet the shadow of her reputation lingered closely behind her. She declined to enroll in any Christian school. Her experience was not aligned with the preferences of public schools. The last I heard, she was toiling away in a call center, making barely more than the minimum wage. What is the true nature of karma? and what transpired with her family. After 8 long months of silence, her parents finally found it in their hearts to forgive her. Yet the air between them remains thick with tension. They sometimes lend a hand with the baby, yet they perpetually voice their opinions on poor life decisions and the repercussions that follow. Her sister maintains a cautious distance, evidently worried that Rachel's reputation could tarnish her own standing within the church. Rachel endeavored to reintegrate into the church community, yet her efforts were met with disappointment. While she may participate in services, she is indefinitely excluded from any leadership roles. She remains in the shadows, slipping away as soon as the service draws to a close. The cessation of women's ministry, the absence of marital retreats, the stagnation of social standing, such is the ultimate irony. A mutual acquaintance revealed to me that she has been expressing regret, admitting that she should have put more effort into her marriage. It is too late. I find myself in a remarkable place where my business flourishes, my relationship stands strong, and I am finally engaging in pursuits I once lacked the time for. I have obtained my pilot's license. I have embarked on the exhilarating journey of mountain riding. I have taken the first steps in learning to play the guitar. What have we gleaned from this experience? Occasionally, the most challenging experiences can lead to the most remarkable transformations in your life. One must possess the courage to set ablaze the bridges that need to be consumed and resolutely refrain from glancing back. It seems that this is the conclusion. I doubt I'll share any further updates on this situation, as, to be frank, Rachel hasn't been on my mind much lately. There are more important matters that deserve my attention. Lastly, I urge anyone facing a similar situation to document every detail. Seize the moment with screenshots. Preserve the text. Collect the necessary proof. While it might not hold weight in a courtroom, given the no-fault divorce laws, one cannot underestimate the strength that knowledge brings. One can never predict when that strength may become essential. Farewell, Reddit.